Hello everyone, this is Glenda and welcome back to Creative Grandma. It's Stitch of the Week time and this week's stitch is number 70 and it's called the Waistcoat Stitch or the Single Crochet Knit Stitch. So I'm going to show you my first sample, and when you're looking at this sample you can see how the stitches look like it's a knit stitch. Now with this in particular pattern, it has two different looks. When you work in the flat like this, I'm just working in a flat piece from one side to the other, you'll see that your stitches are offset a little bit when you do this work because you're turning your work. Now when you work in the round, your stitches will line up perfectly right in the center of each stitch because you're not turning your work. So this video is just showing how to work in the flat from side to side. My first sample is a multicolored sample where I'm using those multicolors, and it just creates a beautiful look to the stitch pattern, and that's an up close look, and you can see how that looks like a knit stitch. My second sample here is where I change colors every 2 rows, so it gives it a completely different look. And this is just using 2 colors, changing colors every 2 rows. And the reason I did that is because you can carry your extra yarn up the side of your work when you're working every 2 rows. You just carry it up the side and you don't have to fasten off. And then when you come back around, you just put your border right over those threads and right through that stitch. So that's an excellent way if you want to change colors. So that is my second sample, and I used a white and a multicolor for this sample. My third sample, I always make that classic white, so I'm not sure if you can see this as well on this stitch pattern. So I'm trying to look through my camera and see how this is coming across. A little bit harder to see, but this is just the plain crisp white clean sample. And I have to tell you, when I look at all 3 of these samples, I'm going to zoom out a little, they all look completely different. This is the solid color, and look how different it looks when you use the 2 colors. And then look how different it looks when you're using that multicolor. So this is why I like to do the 3 samples, because it just creates so many different looks to your work. So it's a quick pattern. This stitch pattern has no multiple. You work it just like a single crochet. You make your chain. The first row is single crochet. The second row we're just working in the post, and then you repeat that second row for the pattern. Now for this pattern, I suggest you use a larger size hook than recommended on the yarn label because you want these stitches to be very, very loose. So for today's sample, I'm going to be using Caron Simply Soft Stripes, and this is color number 19006, and it's called Times Square Beautiful Pinks and Blues and Lavenders. So grab your hook, grab your yarn, and let's get started on this simple stitch pattern. I have my yarn attached to my hook, and I just use a double knot. You're going to make a chain with 10 chains. So yarn over, pull through, that's 1, that creates your first chain. Yarn over, pull through, that's 2. Continue until you have a chain with 10 chains. So I'm just going to go ahead and work my chains. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Our first row, you work just like you do a regular single crochet row. We're going to skip this first chain, insert into that second chain from hook, yarn over, pull through that chain. You have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through 2. Insert into the next chain, yarn over, pull through that chain. You have 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through 2. That's a single crochet. So now we're just going to insert our hook and work a single crochet in each chain across. So work right along with me, insert into the next chain, and work a single crochet. And you'll want to keep your tension loose when you're working this stitch pattern. Don't make your stitches too tight. Work one single crochet in each chain across. Now I'm over to my last chain. You're going to go into that last chain and work a single crochet. Now I've watched several videos of several different ways that people have done the stitch, and the easiest way I found is where we're going to work a single crochet into the first stitch, and we're going to work a single crochet into the last stitch and work the pattern in between. I found that seemed to be the best method to make the stitch, and that is in my opinion. You may have a better way, and that's okay. Just do it whichever way you prefer. So we're going to begin row 2, which is our repeat row, and you're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn, and this is where you start the repeat if you're going to repeat row 2. We're going to skip this chain 1 space here, and you're going to go down to the base of that chain 1 space and go right into that first single crochet and work a single crochet stitch. Now we're going to start the pattern. So let's begin. We're going to drop down below the second horizontal bar, so you're going 1, 2 right underneath that smaller horizontal bar, and you're going to insert your hook right into the center of that upside down V in the post of that stitch. Insert from front to back. You're going to yarn over, pull through that post of that stitch, and then pull up. When you're looking at your work, you want this strand of yarn to be twice the size as this loop on your hook. So judging by what you're seeing, that's about twice as high as this. And then you're going to yarn over and pull through. You want to keep that very loose and make sure it's at least twice as high as that first loop. And it splits the post, and that's what creates the knit stitch look. So let's do it again. You're going to come over to the next stitch. You see 2 horizontal bars. You're going to drop down underneath that second horizontal bar, and you're going to go right through the center of this upside down V or TP type looking stitch. Insert from front to back. Yarn over, pull through that stitch, and pull up. You want this stitch to be twice as long as the loop on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through. And that's all there is to doing this stitch. And you can see it split the stitch, and it looks like your knit stitch. Let's work it across the row. Find your next stitch. You'll see the 2 horizontal bars. You're going to follow it down to the smaller one, the second one below, 1, 2, and then insert right into the center of that V stitch, that upside down stitch. Insert right through the center, yarn over, pull through, and pull up. Make sure this loop is twice as high as the loop on your hook. Yarn over and pull through. Find your next stitch, count down 2 horizontal bars, 1, 2, go right underneath that second horizontal bar and right into the top of that post, right in the center of that upside down V, front to back, yarn over, pull through, and pull up on your hook. Your loop on this side should be twice as long as the loop on your hook. Yarn over and pull through. Find your next stitch, count down to the second horizontal bar, 1, 2, insert right into the center of that post, right in the center of that upside down V, front to back, yarn over, pull through that stitch, and pull up. You make sure that loop is twice as high as the one on your hook, yarn over, and pull through. Find your next stitch. We're almost over to the end. Go down to the second horizontal bar, 1, 2, insert right underneath that horizontal bar and right into the center of that upside down V, front to back, yarn over, pull through, and pull up. Make sure this loop is twice as high as this loop, yarn over, and pull through. And if you do not pull that loop up what's going to happen is your stitches are going to be too tight and it's going to be a very hard stitch to work. Now when you're looking at your work here, you'll see that we have 2 posts left. So we only want to work over 2 within this last post. So let's work in that next stitch. Find your 2 horizontal bars, go down to the second horizontal bar, 1, 2, insert your hook under that second horizontal bar right in the center of that upside down V-stitch. Insert from front to back, yarn over, pull through and pull up. Make sure that loop is twice as long as the loop on your hook, yarn over and pull through. So now we're over to the end of the work and you'll see we have 1 more post here. And when you look at the top of your work, you'll see that we have 1 stitch on the end. When we're going to work this stitch, we're going to skip the last post of this row and we're going to insert our hook into the top 2 loops of that last stitch. So look at your work. Again, here is your last post. Here's your last stitch. We're going to skip the post and we're going to insert our hook at the top of that stitch under the top 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through that stitch and pull through 2 loops on your hook. So we're starting and ending the row with a single crochet. So we started with the single crochet, we ended with the single crochet, but with this pattern, when you work it, you're going to work in the first post when you start the row, and you're going to skip the last post when you end the row. So let's work one more time, because as you flip this, it has a different look. So let's chain 1, and again we're just repeating row 2. Row 2 is our repeat row. You're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn your work. So when you look at your work on this side, you'll again see those 2 horizontal bars, and that's what's very important, and let me show you why. When you start working your stitches over, you'll start seeing another V-stitch here and here, and it kind of looks like your knit stitch, but you have to remember you have to work under the horizontal bars. You're going to insert underneath that second horizontal bar and in through the post of the stitch. And when you do that, that creates your stitch. So you have to be very careful not to go into this V-stitch here. So let's begin row 2 again. Again, we're going to start the row with a single crochet. So you're going to skip that beginning chain 1. You're going to insert into the top of that first single crochet, and you're going to yarn over, pull through, and then pull through 2. You just made your beginning single crochet. You're going to look for your first post going across the row. So here you can see your 2 horizontal bars. So once you see those horizontal bars, you can tell that's your next post underneath it. So find those 2 horizontal bars, insert your hook underneath the second, 1, 2, second horizontal bar right at the top of that V-stitch right through the center of the post. Yarn over, pull through that stitch and pull up. Make sure that loop is twice as high as the loop on your hook, yarn over and pull through. So I'm working across. You're going to make sure you find your next horizontal bars. Go down to the second bar, insert underneath the second bar, but right in the center of that upside down V-stitch, and work your single crochet. Find your next horizontal bars. Here they are, 1, 2. Here's the post of that next stitch. Insert underneath that second horizontal bar down, 1, 2, and right at the top of that upside down V-stitch, insert your hook and work a single crochet. Pull that loop up so it's twice as high as the loop on your hook, yarn over and pull through. Find your next 2 horizontal bars, insert underneath the second horizontal bar from the top, and right in the center of that upside down V, and work your single crochet, pulling that loop up, and then yarn over and pull through. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue working across the row. And this is how simple this stitch is to make. Just make sure your stitches are loose, and it makes it a very easy stitch to work. So when you get over to the end of the row, again, you'll see you have 2 sets of those horizontal bars, 1, 2, which shows me I have 2 stitches left on the row. We do not want to work into that last post, but we still have 1 more to go. Insert underneath that second horizontal bar from the top of that next stitch, insert right underneath the second bar, but right in the center of that upside down V, yarn over, pull that loop up, yarn over, and pull through. We're over at the end of the row, and you can see here's our 2 horizontal bars, and here's that last post. We're going to skip that last post, and you're just going to insert your hook right into the top of that stitch, and you can tell it's the last stitch because here it is very clearly shown. Insert underneath those top 2 strands of that last stitch and work a single crochet. And that is all there is to working the waistcoat stitch or the single crochet knit stitch. Now, if you wanted to work this in the round, then you're not going to have the 2 horizontal bars. So let me just join this. I wasn't going to show you how to do this in this video, but I'm going to join this, and it's going to be really small. I'm going to go in and I'm going to join this round with a slip stitch. So when you're working in the round, I'm going to chain 1. You're going to be going into the post of the stitch. You can see the post of the stitch. This is a really small circle. So here's your stitch. You're going to just go under the 1 horizontal bar and in through the center of that post and work a single crochet. You're going to find your next single crochet. You're going just to go underneath that 1 horizontal bar, and you're going right into the center of that V stitch, of that post of that stitch. And what happens when you work in the round, the stitches are right on top of each other, and it keeps them uniform and straight up and down. Insert into the next stitch. You can see here's your horizontal bar, but you're going right into the center of the post of that stitch. So insert right into the center of the post of the stitch, yarn over, pull through, and still pull that loop up, yarn over, and pull through. And you can see the difference in the stitches because they're lining up, where when it's on flat work, it doesn't line up as perfectly as it does when you work in the round. So I'm working in the round. Here's the next stitch. You just go underneath that horizontal bar, and you're going right into the center of that V stitch of that stitch. And that's the only difference between working in the round and working in the flat. So just by looking at this, you can see how when you work in the round, they line up perfectly, but when you work in the flat, you can see how they're offset slightly. So let me show you my samples again. I hope this helped you understand the waistcoat stitch. Again, this is working in the flat. And when you work in the flat, it is going to be offset. When you work in the round, you can see that because you're not turning your work, you can continue working around and go right in the exact spot in the center of that stitch. Turning your work offsets it, and that's the difference. So that's the first sample in the multicolor. Here's the second sample in using 2 colors, changing colors every 2 rows. And then there's the white. Now again, this is a free stitch pattern on Stitch of the Week. You can find these stitch patterns by going to creativegrandma.net. You can click on Stitch of the Week and just scroll down to the stitch that you prefer. Click on the name of that stitch and you can download it right to your computer and follow along. I hope everybody enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of the crocheting fun or any of the Stitch of the Week crochet patterns. So until next time, happy crocheting, everyone.